Alligator watch, it's perfect timing. I can see clear, clarity diamonds. Ice on the crew, everybody shining. Can't nobody stop me from grinding.
Welcome back to another episode of the No Laces Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jaden Adams.
And I'm your other host, RANDALL'S.
And although the NBA season has come to an end, the fun has just begun with the NBA offseason ensuing and the NBA draft being tonight. And there is no offseason, Randall, without Woj bombs.
Hello.
Now, what's some Woj bombs that in the past that kind of got you like, wow, there's no way the NBA has really took a turn like this?
Donovan Mitchell to the Cavs last year. Came out of nowhere.
You're a Cavs fan, right?
Yeah, big Cavs fan. I was surprised. I never thought it would happen. And hey, there you go. Boom, Donovan Mitchell to the Cavs.
I'm gonna be honest, that's cool. But there is no Woj bomb without Kevin Durant to the Golden State Warriors. That was crazy. But the first of many Woj bombs occurred when today, not even yesterday, the Golden State Warriors agreed to send Jordan Poole to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Chris Paul in a package where details still have to come out. But the headliners of that trade are Chris Paul and Jordan Poole. How do you feel like this affects both teams negatively and positively?
Actually, I don't see too much of a negative on the surface. To me, it's clear the Wizards are in tank mode, really trying to rebuild. Initially, I thought the Warriors were just going to buy out Chris Paul, but recently, according to Chris Haynes from Bleacher Report, he says their plan is to move on and continue with Chris Paul. So I think it'll be pretty interesting to looking forward to how they're going to partner with him. That's pretty much my idea.
See, me personally, I don't get either side of the trade because the Washington Wizards also acquired Tyus Jones with the Marcus Smart trade. Mm-hmm. So it's like they both have pretty lucrative contracts. So yes, you're in tank mode and you kind of want to build through the draft, but you also want to Washington D.C. You might be able to land a star in Washington D.C. Mm-hmm. However, with no money and no cap room, what star is likely to go there? With that being said, I also don't see how the Warriors fit with Chris Paul. It's kind of like the D'Angelo Russell trade when D'Angelo Russell went from being an all-star to a six-man, and that kind of made him go to Minnesota, then now to L.A. Chris Paul is on his way out the door, but he is also a Hall of Fame point guard. Mm-hmm. However, I don't see how that meshes. Like, does he come off the bench, or does Steph Curry move to the two?
Right.
How does him and Draymond Green, who declined his player option, but if he stays, how do they mesh? They're very undersized. Can Chris Paul still defend at a high level? According to Patrick Beverley, he's a cone. So, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's hard for that because people go at Steph Curry on the defensive side of the ball. People go at Chris Paul on the defensive side of the ball. Klay Thompson getting kind of old. So you still got Wiggins and Green, but I'm not sure how this helps the Warriors dynasty. Me personally, I believe that this Warriors dynasty was a great run, but I'm not sure they'll get another ring. How about you? What do you think?
To me, the dynasty really been over. I feel like the West has gotten so good, and as they're getting good and younger, now the other teams are getting good and younger, while the Warriors are getting older and more injury prone and not as deep as they used to be, which is hard to be that deep when you got guys making a lot more money. Your stars want to be paid, so it's a lot harder to be able to use the mid-level exception and all these other things, especially when you're over the cap.
How big do you think the incident that basically the whole world saw on video played in the Warriors having to kind of make some changes to the roster? Me personally, everyone can kind of see that the team morale and the team chemistry was down during the playoffs and over the course of the season, especially how the Warriors were so good at home, but on the road they just really couldn't get the hang of things. And a lot of people were saying during the offseason, well, during the playoffs once they lost to the Lakers, that something had to be done. Bob Myers stepped down, and many people knew that Jordan Poole or Draymond Green, one of them were going to have to leave because it's a business and that's your co-worker, but you could still see it was a barrier between the two, or an elephant in the room, elephant on the TV screen, if you will. So they knew they had to do something with that. However, you might be in risk of losing both of them.
Right.
Who would you have chose to keep if you were the owner or the president?
I always think you go with Draymond because he's the glue of that. He was the glue of that whole team. some would even say the leader of the whole team, of the whole franchise. Because if he wasn't, then you wouldn't put up with so many things. That he brings some good, some bad, but and that you live with it when it's somebody that's the heart and soul of your team. So I think, really, when you think about it, that rift is really what hurt them. And I just kind of thought about it just now. Maybe the real reason they struggled on the road was because you have it was some people on the team side with Jordan Poole, some people side with Draymond Green. When you go on the road as a team, you got to be together because it's you versus everybody else. Now at home, not everybody's riding together. Some people, you come into the arena at your own time when you want, but on the road, that's when you really got to come together and be together as a team and say y'all going out to eat or y'all doing different things together. And it's the Jordan Poole or his side, it was always going to be that rift. And something interesting Draymond said, I think the season started in October. He didn't start saying stuff and starting to be a leader until about January, like he used to be. But he wasn't saying anything. He just, I guess you could kind of say it was kind of a self-punishment. But I think they never really dealt with the situation. He just got his little suspension, whatever. They never dealt with the situation, so it just lingered and lingered.
Well, you can't say they didn't deal with the situation because we're always on the outside looking in, and we only know what a camera tells us or what a quote-unquote source tells us. I do believe with them being a team that the situation was handled. Those are grown men at the end of the day. So if someone was to punch someone else in the face, someone was to punch me in the face, I probably would never be your friend again. But how, unfortunately, if we have to be on the same team and we all got one common goal, I can put that to the side for this goal. But our relationship will change for the worse. I will no longer be your friend. We just have a common goal. I do believe that behind closed doors, of course, it was talked about, but who's to know why Draymond really kind of didn't step into that vocal leadership role that he usually does until later in the season? Maybe he was trying to go about things differently, or maybe he didn't want to be as, who knows what it was. But it turned out for the worse or for the better, maybe. We will see. They have Chris Paul now, a Hall of Fame point guard who is chasing his first ring, and his time window is very, very, very small. So it's really now or never for the Warriors, and I do not think it will happen. However, let's switch conferences. A team that the Warriors beat in their dynasty run, in the Boston Celtics, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but traded veteran point guard, defensive player of the year point guard, defensive anchor point guard, and glue guy point guard Marcus Smart to the Memphis Grizzlies in a 3-team trade for Kristaps Porzingis, while Memphis is getting Marcus Smart, Kristaps Porzingis is going to Boston, and Tyus Jones, a solid backup point guard, will be going to the Washington Wizards. Me personally, I'm not really too keen on the trade. I love the trade for the Memphis Grizzlies now, especially with Ja Morant being suspended 25 games. It's kind of like, where's the offense going to come from? You lose Dylan Brooks. Where's the defensive edge going to come from? And you got it in Marcus Smart. You got a defensive player of the year. You got a hustle player of the year award. Him and Jaren Jackson. Memphis Grizzlies are going to be one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, and they're one already. And you still got Steven Adams coming back from injury, along with Brandon Clark. So a lot of people, including myself, thought that Memphis Grizzlies would take a hit. However, with Ja Morant being out 25 games, the acquisition of Marcus Smart makes them a very serious threat to the Denver Nuggets and who else? Maybe the Phoenix Suns in the West. But for the Boston Celtics, I don't really like the trade. Here's why. Al Horford, he's old, he's washed. I'm sorry. That's just my take on it, right? However, you get Kristaps Porzingis to come play the 4. You have a 7-footer who can stretch the floor, shoot the 3, kind of take it to the rack, and you still got the Time Lord and Robert Williams at the 5. I just don't see how the team gets better defensively. Al Horford was old, but he could play better defense. Kristaps Porzingis is not really a perimeter defender. He may be able to clog the paint, but that kind of reminds me of the Timberwolves and Karl Anthony Towns and the Minnesota Timberwolves and Rudy Gobert. I'm sorry. Along with that, you lose your point guard. You lose your defensive anchor. You lose your glue guy. You lose that guy that just brings everybody together and is the engine that could, if you will. So I'm not sure if this makes the Boston Celtics any better. I feel like this keeps them in the same place and they lose an edge on defense where championships are won. How do you feel?
I think initially, I think for the Celtics, it's more of insurance. I think you made some good points as far as Marcus Smart on defense. But I think in their mind, they're sacrificing defense for offense. And some people may agree, some people don't agree, but that seems to be their philosophy in the way they're going right now. Kristaps Porzingis picked up his player option, so next year he'll be an unrestricted free agent. So that's another thing that's telling me is that it looks like they're going all in for this year, going all in. And I think that's kind of, they've been having either injury problems or just different things with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And some people are saying Jaylen Brown might get traded, so maybe that's just an insurance piece as far as offensively to help them. Just to go back on the Wizards, I mean, I think their whole philosophy right now is they just don't give it.
Yeah, they're just out of control right now.
They don't care at the moment. And then, to me, Memphis benefits the most in the long run. Initially, no, but in the long run, after Ja comes back from his suspension, because the biggest thing that I'm thinking personally, maybe their defense will just be so good, but I think they're going to miss out on their offensive production. Marcus Smart, the most he's averaging in the season is 13.1 points per game. So obviously they're not bringing him on there for offensively reasons, but they're going to need some kind of pickup offensively as far as scoring in this league, because obviously it's a scoring league. Defense does win championships, but you got to win. You got to put some points on the board as well. But the things I think that he's going to bring to the team is a veteran presence. Obviously, we know about his defense and leadership. I think he can. I mean, if Ja actually listens, that would be actually a good mentor for him. I think, along with Steven Adams, the other guys that he has. But I think that would be a good, like, another guy he can defer to and talk to maybe help him deal with his transition and coming back to the league and doing things the right way.
Okay. I like what you said about Marcus Smart and the 13.1 points per game. However, I do believe Desmond Bane, who averages over 20 points per game, will step his game up knowing what the team needs from him. Usually he's the secondary scorer when John Moran is on the court, but if I know I have a point guard who is more so of a playmaking point guard and a defensive anchor, he's going to look for me. Taylor Jenkins, a great head coach, he's going to run a lot of plays through Desmond Bane. And I like Jaren Jackson to bump his game up. Of course, he's a great defender. He's a big that can stretch the floor, but I feel like he'll be very much more aggressive on the offensive end, at least for the first 25 games. And if he can get that confidence in the first 25 games, that will carry over to when John Moran is on the court. And I would just really love to see how the Memphis Grizzlies can mesh with Smart on the floor, Morant on the floor, Bane on the floor, and Jaren Jackson, Steven Adams, because that's a great roster. And the NBA is all about matchups. Whatever matchup it is the better team with the matchups is the better team that has a chance of winning that series. And you put them up with a team who just won a championship in Denver Nuggets. I don't see why the Memphis Grizzlies cannot win that game, or win that series. And back to the Celtics, you said you like to trade for offense because they going all in on offense, but let me ask you this. The Mike D'Antonio Houston Rockets, did they win a championship? Yes or no?
No, they didn't.
The Mike D'Antoni Phoenix Suns, 7 seconds or less, did they win a championship?
No.
Interesting. So obviously teams that, the Mike D'Antoni New York Knicks, did they win a championship?
No.
All those teams have one common denominator. What was that?
What's that?
Offense. Offense is what I want to see on TV, is what everybody wants to see on TV, but that is not what's going to win you a game. The teams that win games are the 2000 or win series or win the championships, the 2003-2004 Detroit Pistons. They can score, but they also can play a lot of defense. The San Antonio Spurs could play defense. The Miami Heat with LeBron James and the Big Three. Of course, they had LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and really a little bit of other people on the roster, but they made sure they played defense. LeBron James, when he was in Miami, was an all-NBA defensive player. You're not winning a championship without a good defensive presence. Even the Houston Rockets, they were up 3-1 on one of the best teams ever assembled with Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors in 2018 or 17. I'm not sure what year it was. They were up on them. Went to Game 7. It all came crashing down because in the playoffs, in Game 7s, defense tightens up. And offense, you can't just rely on offense because that ball gets smaller. Well, not the ball gets smaller, but the rim gets smaller and screws just tighten up a little bit, so your shot is a little off. You need that defensive presence, which is why I feel like the Boston Celtics will take a huge hit because you still got grit and grind teams like who? The Miami Heat coming up. They going to get better in the offseason. Then who else do you have? You have the New York Knicks, who play defense with Tom Thibodeau. I'm not sure if they can beat Boston, but I'm just naming a couple defensive teams that can give them a run for their money and could win off their defensive ability. Because defense translates to offense, but you know offense does not translate to defense. And you still got the Milwaukee Bucks. Speaking of the Milwaukee Bucks, I want to talk about this one person I saw in the Woj bomb, Khris Middleton. He declined his player option, which I believe was around 40 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's around 40 million. He's an NBA champion, and an All-Star, but he's coming off of a torn ACL. When he was healthy and when he played on the court, he averaged about 15 points a game last season, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. But he's a solid X factor and a great number 2 or even a number 3 piece on a championship contended team. How do you feel like him declining his player option will affect the Milwaukee Bucks in being contenders with the Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat, and the Philadelphia 76ers in the Eastern Conference?
I think it will affect them pretty hugely. But at the end of the day, it all goes around Giannis and what he does. As he takes that next step forward and as he brings other guys up. Because I think Khris Middleton is a solid player, but he's a player that you can find in maybe a mid-level exception or something like that. Because they don't need somebody, like he obviously needs a solid number 2, but Giannis is going to take a lot of the attention away. So they just need to find or just develop somebody that's on their roster, because you got to think too, as if he's not there, somebody else is getting those shots. So I think that he would be a key loss, but I think he's probably at this point of his career he wants to kind of go somewhere else and see if he can get a bigger role and not be in Giannis' shadow.
But the thing about it is, you gotta be real with yourself sometimes. And self-accountability is like the main thing, being the main thing. And you're not that guy. You're good, but you will never go to Khris Middleton. You're not going to an NBA team leading into a championship. I'm sorry, it's not happening. Like, it's really not happening. You are a solid number 2 on a championship contending team. If he was to go maybe to the Sacramento Kings, you might help them, but you still are a number 2 to De'Aaron Fox. Nowhere in the NBA isn't on no roster is he the number 1. He goes to the Houston Rockets, Jalen Green is the number 1. He goes to the Detroit Pistons, Cade Cunningham is the number 1. I'm sorry to break it to you, Khris Middleton, but you are not the number 1 option. So
maybe he's just tired of living in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
I've never been there, so
that is a boring place to live. I pray you get healthy, and I pray health over wealth. Still get wealthy though, but as long as your body is comfortable, I hope everybody get a payday. But a number one option, I just don't see that happening. Let's pivot a little bit. This is also, if you didn't know, you know now. This is also an NBA Draft live episode. So as the top 10 lottery will be taking place, we're going to be discussing the picks and potential trades in the draft, our dark horses of who we think might become great players to come out this draft, outside of the top 3, obviously, and Scoot Henderson, Victor Wembanyama, and Brandon Miller. And you, my friend, you have an interesting take on some of these NBA prospects. Let's start with Victor Wembanyama.
Who? The next LeBron? Or are you talking about the most overhyped player, to me, maybe ever in the NBA draft? Because everybody always saying, can't miss prospect, this and that. The last real deal, obviously he can play in the post a little bit, but he's more of a point guard. But to me, the guy that's kind of similar to that, and I'm not going to use like a Zion or somebody like that, Greg Oden, if anybody can remember that. He was supposed to be a can't miss, the next greatest big man, and he dealt with injuries and different things like that. I think a lot of people needs to let him just come in the league and play. Because I don't think, obviously he played overseas and everything like that, and everybody says, oh, that's better than the G League, better than they can beat college teams and all this other propaganda. But let the man play. Don't tell me that he's the next greatest thing. Let him show me. And that's kind of my biggest thing right now, because to me, he's all hype, no substance. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's my opinion on the situation.
So you said his floor being Greg Oden. Right. What is his ceiling?
To me, I think his ceiling is like a Luka. In my opinion.
He's 7'4", 237 pounds, and he's 19, 8-foot wingspan, and you call him Luka Doncic?
Because Luka plays point. They both, like, he can shoot, he can distribute. I mean, he can do. He's way more of a defensive presence than him. But I just don't. I see him as being. I really don't even see him as being maybe top 10, top 15 in the league. I don't see top 5 superstar Hall of Famer like a LeBron or a KD. Maybe a Giannis, which I guess Giannis is a Hall of Famer, but I think that's more of the ceiling, Luka and the Giannis kind of role. I don't really see him as a must-watch game changer. Then my other point on that is, how tall did you say he was again?
7'4".
7'4". Now, many people don't know this, but it's about 2 or 3 guys that 7 feet and taller that's played in the NBA that hasn't had a serious injury. He's gonna have a lot of mileage on those legs, on those knees, and like my co-host, my other host said, we speak health and wealth, but it's hard being that big, that long, having that much mileage going up and down the court, especially the way that the game is played now, a lot of up and down pace, and obviously he's gonna go number 1. If they do a good job of not running him into the ground, which we don't know what they'll do, to me, I don't think he's going to be as great as everybody's hyping him up to be.
See, I agree with you and I disagree with you at the same time. Am I sold on Victor Wembeyama? I'm not sold on him becoming an all-time great NBA player like a LeBron James or Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant, but I am sold on him becoming an NBA All-Star, 5, 6, 7-time All-Star. I do see that happening. So, is he a bust? Absolutely not. Will he be a good NBA player? Yes, he will be. I'm just not sold on the hype train of him becoming a Mount Rushmore type of NBA player. But let me provide you with some stats. And he averaged overseas last year 21.6 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks. And if you watch the film, overseas was a way more physical style of play. So him scoring the rock in the NBA with the style of play change and it being more offensive based, giving the fans a show, I don't think he'll have a problem scoring. My fear of Victor Wembeyama is what you said, mileage. He's very thin and he's very frail, and that's what kind of scares me. And when he goes against the Jokic's, the Embiid's, the Giannis's, how will he compete against them? And if he can dominate against them, then I'm wrong. He might actually become an all-time great, and the Spurs might have another dynasty 20 years later. However, a ceiling I would have for him is a Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is an all-time great, but I think Victor Wembeyama would be right up under that, maybe like a 25-30 all-time player range, if that's the case. And a floor I will have for him with the injuries, although this player has never played, I just kind of see the same hype. However, this player was not the #1 pick. I see Chet Holmgren a lot. Chet Holmgren, 7 foot, right? Chet Holmgren was a 7-footer out of Gonzaga, could dribble the rock, shoot it, block. They're kind of built the same way. So hopefully Chet Holmgren gets healthy so we can see his full potential. And if Chet Holmgren ends up being one of the all-star and that's your floor, then you're going to be a great player. However, I'm just not sold on the greatest of all time. I personally do not believe Victor Wembeyama is the best player in this draft. The best player in this draft, in my opinion, and you can state your opinion as well, I believe is Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson is a 6'2", 195 point guard who reminds me a lot of Russell Westbrook with the Oklahoma City Thunder, but the only difference is he has a much more better jump shot, and he has a much more pro-ready body. His ability to attack the rim and get to the hole really goes to show that he's the most pro-ready prospect, and he's only a point guard. With that being said, Henderson averaged 17.6 points per game with the G League Ignite, 5.1 rebounds, and 6.1 assists last season. So you can kind of see why I get a lot of Russell Westbrook in him. He's complete all around. How do you feel about him?
I agree with your comparison. To me, his ceiling is Westbrook, which is Russell Westbrook, and his floor is Colin Sexton.
Wow. Wow. Nah, that's crazy.
That's my personal opinion. Obviously, he's extremely athletic. Colin Sexton is extremely athletic too.
Yeah.
He's extremely athletic. Obviously, shoots the ball a little bit better. But that's kind of he can do pretty much anything on the court. But to me, the number one prospect in my mind is the other guy in the top 3 that everybody's talking about is Brandon Miller. Just for Alabama, and not only, I mean, Alabama has never really been the top college basketball program. So the way he helped lead that team, and I just think just all around, to me, my personal opinion, he's the most complete player in this draft.
You think he's the most complete? You think he's more complete than Scoot?
Yeah, I've never really, I mean, I think Scoot is a solid player, but I'm not really on that Scoot Henderson train. Cause I just feel like those, besides, I guess you can always do LeBron, who's an athletic freak, but like how many guys like, I mean, Westbrook, is Westbrook a Hall of Famer in your opinion?
Averaging a triple-double multiple times, and it's very easy to get into the NBA Naismith Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer.
Okay, but if I'm looking to build a team, I'm not gonna build it around a Westbrook or a Colin Sexton or to me or Scoot Henderson. I just think they're really good. I think they would be really good twos, as long as he doesn't have the baggage that Westbrook comes with. But I think he would be a really good two. But I don't see him as a generational talent or a game changer that's going him by himself going to turn your whole franchise around.
And right now, Adam Silver is picking the 2nd pick in the draft, which they just selected your favorite player in Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller, a 6'9", 200-pound forward out of the University of Alabama, who can score the ball on all 3 levels, I will say. My player comp for him, his ceiling, I like Brandon Miller. I just don't think he's better than Scoot Henderson. This whole top 3 is good, and they all have potential to be all-star Hall of Fame players when it's all said and done. So with that being said, my ceiling for Brandon Miller, I would have to say Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce had the ability to score on all 3 levels. I just don't know if Brandon Miller is much of a defender, and that's why I like his ceiling being Paul Pierce. And his floor, our guy who we were just talking about, being Khris Middleton. Khris Middleton about 6'7", can score on all 3 levels, but and defend just a little bit, but definitely can score the ball at all 3 levels. A solid number 2 piece on a championship contended team. I don't have a problem with Brandon Miller getting selected 2nd. I mean, he averaged 18 points per game, 8 rebounds, while shooting 43% from the field at Alabama. My only question is, do you think he'll have a hard time scoring the ball? Because we kind of saw ups and downs at Alabama, especially in the NCAA tournament, when he kind of was a shell of himself, if you will.
I personally don't think he'll have that much trouble, but I feel like he has a really good work ethic. And kind of, well, some people may remember, LeBron came in the league. Obviously, he could get to the rim at any point in time, but his jump shot was not where it should have been as an NBA player. When they went to that's when the Spurs implemented that defense where they just basically let him shoot. Don't let him drive to the hole.
Don't let him go right.
Yeah.
If he drives left, he's pulling up.
And you know what LeBron did? He worked on all of that stuff. And he became
the greatest basketball player of all time.
But to me, I think the other good thing, I feel like Brandon Miller is a really good two-way player.
So you believe he can play defense?
That's my personal opinion. But obviously he's not perfect, and he does have room for improvement, like any player does. Obviously, and like my other host said, I do think he needs to improve on the offensive end, but I think he will. My comparisons would be a floor of Andrew Wiggins and a ceiling of Paul George.
See, I'm gonna call you out. I'm calling you out. I know where you're getting these comparisons from, first of all. And second of all, you only saying Paul George because of what he said the other day. Paul George being the GOAT over Jordan and LeBron.
Which was an asinine take, but go ahead.
In his opinion, he's the greatest basketball player of all time. But I would say, like I said, I see Paul Pierce with a floor of Khris Middleton. So Paul, either Paul, you want to be Paul Pierce, you want to be Paul George, you're going to have a good career ahead of you. Just don't act like you got to use the bathroom to go to the locker room. Well, the number 3 pick is in, but it's going to take a couple minutes for them to show us the results. So let's talk about a dark horse prospect in the NBA draft outside of the top 3 that you think can have a solid impact on a championship winning team or just a solid career in general that nobody really is talking about?
Okay. Now, some people that know me will not be surprised by this this pick. I just preface it with I'm a big Ohio State guy. So my pick for sleeper in this draft is none other than Bryce Sensabaugh.
Who?
Bryce Sensabaugh. Look it up. Look it up. All right. Before I even get to, he's likely to probably be a late first rounder. A very versatile scorer. He led the team last year in scoring. His comparison would be Desmond Bane to me. His strengths, just a really good size. He's strong combo forward in the NBA. Also, the biggest thing he needs to work on is being a better on-ball defender defense-wise. But I know many people don't know about him, but he was really one of the leaders of an Ohio State team that made a really good run in the conference tournament, losing to Purdue, a really good Purdue team. But that's my pick, Bryce Sensabaugh. Take a look at him.
Okay. With the pick being in, I'm going to hold off on my dark horse for afterwards. I kind of want to take you through this number 3 pick because obviously the whole world knows who's about to get drafted. Mm-hmm. But do you think Scoot Henderson will ever wear a Portland TRAILBLAZERS uniform?
Personally, I do. In my personal opinion, I think he could really, because I don't think Damian Lillard's going to be there. So I think at some point he's going to get traded. I feel like this offseason. But I think Scoot Henderson is a really solid, really good player that they can build off of. And obviously, I don't think they're making the playoffs or anything next year. But then maybe next year's draft, compare him with somebody else, almost kind of like the Warriors did early on. And have a really, really good team for years to come. Kind of like maybe how Damian and C.J. McCollum was, but hopefully they can surpass what they did.
And as NBA Commissioner Adam Silver walks up to the podium to give the selection, who is probably going to be Scoot Henderson. Let's see. So they have selected Scoot Henderson. So the top 3 went pretty much as follows since the NBA draft lottery. And I saw a lot of reports saying that Damian Lillard might get traded to the Heat, or Damian Lillard this, Damian Lillard that. But the Portland TRAILBLAZERS earlier today backed out of trade talks with any team about Damian Lillard. And they also have Anthony Simons, a solid 2-guard combo guard who can give you 20 points a game. Then you got a young and upcoming player who was a rookie last year in Shaedon Sharpe, who's very athletic, just as athletic as Scoot Henderson. Is he a better player? Absolutely not. But athleticism is just about the same. So they're very guard heavy in Portland. What's going on in Portland? They're not really making moves to help Dame. They're getting younger, but Dame is always preaching loyalty. At some point, do you think it's a change of scenery needed for Damian Lillard to excel in his career, or is he complacent in the career that he has had so far?
Obviously, I can't speak for Damian Lillard because to me, he should have been left because I feel like he's wasting. I mean, maybe he doesn't feel like it, but in my opinion, he's wasting the prime of his career at a place. I mean, once CJ McCollum left, I thought that he would be next to go, because it's like they're not trying to compete for championships. Obviously, Portland is not I don't know how much their owners make, but it's not a place where they're spending a boatload of money trying to win now. I think Dame to really get, because he's had some really good playoff moments, but I think if he go to the Heat, hopefully he doesn't go to the Heat because I'm a Cavs fan, but if he goes to the Heat, at least that's a place where he could possibly compete or be a real contender. But I think it just seems like everything they're doing is like they're not trying to help Dame, but they're setting up for Dame to leave.
Exactly.
Now maybe they could trade Dame in another piece for somebody. Not obviously wouldn't be to the Heat, but maybe to another team to get a really good player. But I don't think their focus really is winning. I think it's more of making the best business. It's more of a business to them than I feel like some teams don't care about spending over the cap.
It's more a business than championship.
Right.
Yeah, one thing I will say about the Portland TRAILBLAZERS, they do have a good history of drafting solid NBA players. Unfortunately, Greg Oden battled with injuries for most of his career, so that didn't pan out how most people expected it to. But another player that a lot of people really know about but always forget about, who the Portland Trailblazers drafted, is shooting guard Brandon Roy. Brandon Roy was a great scorer, averaging 25+ points per game. He just happened to suffer from injuries and have a lot of injury woes as well. So he didn't kind of turn out to be as expected. But Damian Lillard was a great player and still is a great player. So hopefully Scoot Henderson can fill the shoes of those two and have a healthy and triumphant career.
And real quick, speaking of Portland, which for this reason I really don't understand why they even still keeping Dame, because they're not really competing for nothing. They are $74 million over the cap. Okay, Damian Lillard makes $45 million by himself. Anthony Simons, 24 million, which I think he's a solid player, but obviously everybody's overpaying for NBA players, but I don't think he's worth that. And then thirdly, you have Nurkic, who's making $16 million. And then everybody else makes $4 million, whatever, below. But those are three guys, which is definitely not a big three, but those are three guys that are making a substantial amount, probably about 75% of their total payroll. So to me, I don't know what they're doing from that.
We spoke on the top three, and congratulations to those young men, and I hope they have great NBA careers. My dark horse, UCLA shooting guard Jaime Jaquez Jr. Does that name ring a bell?
Not at all.
I believe Jaime Jaquez Jr. has the ability to be a Manu Ginobili / Hedo Turkoglu type of player on a championship contending team, or just a team that's good in the playoffs and just always on the brink of championship competitiveness, if you will. He has shown the ability to make big-time shots in big-time moments during the NCAA tournament and has the ability to defend. His fearlessness could help him and hurt him at the same time, which reminds me of lots of Bogdanovic for the Atlanta Hawks. He's very fearless, but he can make some crazy shots, and he can shoot you in a game, and he can shoot you out of a game, but he has the ability to be a solid six-man or just a good, energetic player off the bench that could be the championship help, like a Bruce Brown maybe, or just a solid glue guy that can help you and provide a spark. Jaime Jaquez Jr. averaged 17.8, so basically 18 points per game while at UCLA last season, also with 8 rebounds per game at UCLA, who made it to the Sweet 16 in the past couple of seasons. So, how do you feel about Jaime Jaquez Jr.?
I think he can be a really solid player. Some of the things I've seen some of the teams targeting him, like the Suns, potentially thinking about trading up for him, and the Warriors, they really love his star potential. So I think, and even just regardless of my opinion, the Warriors, I think, do a good job of drafting guys and really scouting talent. So if they see that star potential, which I think he's saying 6 men, but obviously some teams, if they're going to trade up for him and different things, they see a really huge potential, and especially if he was able to go to like a Suns or Warriors or just a team that has superstars, that now him coming in, his role is going to be obviously a lot easier coming into, but not only that, he's going to have more opportunities because they're going to get all the attention, and now Jaime Jaquez Jr. might take off like a rocket ship.
Exactly. No pun intended if he goes to the Rockets. But I feel like if he goes to a team that's already ready, he could easily just come in and provide that spark, like Christian Brown provided in the playoffs. And I just believe, I'm taking a shot in the dark, but I think I can see clearly that he is going to be a good player in the NBA for many, many years to come. So the top 3 has been squared away. Do you know anything about 4, 5, and 6? It's like afternoon.
It's a pretty much capture. I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody from overseas, or just you don't really know when you get down to 4, 5, and 6. Obviously, you have different mock drafts and people. But I think the top 3, you could have took that to Vegas and bet and pretty much won a lot of money to say who those 3 was going to be. So I think beyond that, you never really know with the NBA draft. Just like any draft, you're gonna have surprises and some head scratchers. But yeah, that's pretty much my opinion. What about you?
Like you said, I feel like it's a crapshoot. I tried to do I tried to do a little bit of research on the prospects, especially some of the ones that's from Overtime Elite, G League Ignite Overseas that you're not too familiar with or that you don't see on television. And right here with the 4th pick, the Houston Rockets just selected guard THOMPSON, who is from Overtime Elite, one of the twins. Many people have said he's one of the most athletic players in the draft, but his floor is Ben Simmons, so I take it that his jump shot may need a little bit of work. And one thing I will say about jump shots in the NBA, it's kind of like a quarterback with his throwing motion. You want to teach someone how to throw and what to do to kind of speed up their release and how to help them. But if something has got them this far to a certain point, you don't want to tweak it too much, a la Markelle Fultz. You had an NBA superstar who everybody thought was going to be great coming out of college, and they tweaked his jump shot just a little bit. Who he had a jump shot coming through the AAU circuit, had a jump shot coming up to college. They tried to make one minor adjustment to it, and his whole jump shot just kind of fell through the cracks, and that's why people were considering him as a bust, even though he's turned out to have a pretty solid NBA career. Not a #1 pick career, but a solid NBA career. So you don't want to touch their jump shot too much. You kind of just want to let them get a natural feel of it and change it naturally. You don't want to do anything that's unnatural. But with him being athletic, getting to the cup won't be a problem. Here it says he averaged 16.4 points per game in Overtime Elite, 5.9 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 2.3 steals. 2.3 steals will be pivotal in his play for the Houston Rockets, who they were very bad on defense last year. They were young, and all they really cared about was offense. But with Ime Udoka being their new head coach, he's going to bring a gritty style that he had in Boston, which is when he had Marcus Smart, who Amin Thompson could be a more athletic version of, and he could provide that defensive spark for the team that they need. He's very lanky, being at 6'4", so I think this is a great fit for this kid.
And then another guy that I really think could be really good is Taylor Hendricks, which is from UCF. Which I don't know the last UCF player that's been in the lottery or even been drafted.
Was Taco drafted? But he wasn't lottery. But
yeah. I think maybe Taco went in that 2nd round, but just a little bit on Taylor Hendricks. He averaged 15.1 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 1.4 assists, 39.4% from three-point percentage. So that's pretty dang solid. He's really obviously a stretch forward, capable of making plays on both ends of the floor. Just obviously needs to grow. I would think. I think my projection would be for him to go to Detroit Pistons. We'll see what the 5th pick is, but I think he would be a really nice fit in Detroit, along with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey.
So let me ask you this, because the Detroit Pistons, they do have Jalen Duren, who was one of the youngest players in the NBA, and for those who watch basketball and got the league pass and stuff like that, he was hitting on the rebounds. Mm-hmm. He was getting about 12, 13 rebounds a game, and he's a force at the 5 position. And then they had Isaiah Stewart go to the 4, and he developed a jump shot. So do you think that they still would bring another big on, or they would bring maybe a Jarris Walker, a 3 type of player to stretch the floor, be a 3-and-D type of wing? You still think they would go big with those 2 already at the helm?
I mean, I think I could see them doing either or. But I always think you can never have too many bigs. If you solid in the middle.
Pause. Yeah. Carry on.
All right. But and obviously he's a big, but to me he's more of a stretch forward that could help. And you could never have enough defenders. Like you was kind of talking about earlier, I feel like when you think about the East, you think more defensive teams. In the West, to me, it's more scoring teams, a lot more offense, a lot more high scoring games. But I think he would be a really good addition to their team. That's just my opinion.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a couple curveballs at you. I hope you're ready. Pause. we got it. All right. I'm gonna throw a couple of curves at you. Ready? Now, Dallas Mavericks. Who do you think they? What way do you think they go?
I feel like just to start off, Mark Cuban is always a little out of the realm, out of the box of things that he does. But one guy I could see them getting is if he lasts that long, which they got pick number 10, is a guy that's been skyrocketing a lot of boys. That's Dereck Lively, center.
That's exactly who I wanted you to say, because the Dallas Mavericks, if you play with them on 2K, if you know the game, they have the scoring in Kyrie Irving, Tim Hardaway Jr., and obviously Luka Doncic, but they lack the interior.
Right.
That's where the cookie crumbles. You got all that on the outside, but sometimes them shots not gonna fall. You need them offensive rebounds. You need that defensive anchor that's a 5, and they have Dwight Powell, but he's very frail. Dereck Lively is frail in himself, but as you said, and I'm glad you said that, Dereck Lively was one of the nation's, if not the nation's, best shot blocker in the NBA. You're not just going to the hole lane, getting those freebies that you would against Dwight Powell. No offense, but you're not a rim protector. You're just a good big. Dereck Lively is more of a rim protector. Here it says he shot 65.8% from the field at Duke.
Wow.
So when he gets the ball, he's very light on his feet. He's getting back up. Those are easy cleanup points for a team that likes to shoot and likes to get up and down the court. So I like that you said that for the Dallas Mavericks. And however, your boy Taylor Hendricks did not get drafted at 5.
Who did they go with?
The other twin, AUSAR Thompson, who was another guard, 6'7", 218 pounds, out of Overtime Elite. He is an athletic wing, so probably more of a 3-and-D type of player. He averaged, just like his brother, 16 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, 6.1 assists per game, and 2.4 steals per game. So basically, what I'm reading is, it didn't matter who the Rockies got, who the Pistons got, you got the same player.
Right.
They're twins, they play just alike, they're just as athletic as each other, they score the ball at the same rate, and they both play defense. 2.3 steals per game, 2.4 steals per game. Any team will take that. And I know Monty Williams would love to have a 6'7" type of player that can shoot the ball well, rebound the ball well, assist and steal. Because think about the player he just had before they traded him in Mikal Bridges. That may be a comp I see for AUSAR Thompson and Mikal Bridges. I kind of like that comparison, especially with Monty Williams. I feel like he will be able to flourish. And you see that Mikal Bridges, when he got a bigger role, he's averaging 20-plus points per game.
Right.
In the last brothers to get drafted in the top 5 common draft era are Lonzo Ball and LaMelo Ball. So congrats to those two. I know your family is very proud, and hope y'all get that bag.
Twin brothers?
Twins.
From one twin to another. Congratulations.
Shout out to the twins, man. Let me throw some other teams at you randomly. The Lakers. What route do you think the Lakers are going to go? Because with LeBron possibly retiring, they might need
We both know LeBron ain't going no day anywhere.
Yeah, LeBron, please don't retire. But luckily, I can say I watched him play.
I need one more ring, LeBron. Okay. How to say? I'll put my cap on. If I was the Lakers, I'm thinking guard. Because LeBron obviously needs some more, just guys to be able to shoot and I think do different things to be able to kind of transition into what he needs. Obviously, you don't need no big clogging up the court, clogging up the hole. Obviously, you got a little injured Anthony Davis.
A little injured.
But to me, I think a really solid addition would be Jordan Hawkins from UConn. He averaged 16.2 points per game, 3.8 rebounds a game, obviously 38.8% from three. So I think he would be a really solid shooter. Obviously, if he's still available at 17, which we all don't know, but some of them, and I might agree, some have compared him to J.J. Redick-esque type of shooter. Shooting 38% from three, obviously it's the college game, it's a little bit deeper in the NBA, but I feel like shooting 38% is real. Anything where you getting over 37, 36%, it's a really good three-point shooter. And obviously he gonna have wide open shots with guys like LeBron and different things that can that can distribute. And if Austin Reeves take the next step, which hopefully he does, 'cause I think LeBron really needs that at this next point in his career, just for like to have a real solid two that he can trust and depend on. I don't know if it'll be Reeves or not, but in my opinion, I think Jordan Hawkins would be a very solid addition.
A solid piece, I think, for the Los Angeles Lakers. Jordan Hawkins, who is a very good scorer, but I don't know. He just came off winning a national championship, so he has that championship pedigree. But a person with who might have the most upside in this draft is a Duke Blue Devil, and not Derek Lively. I believe it's DARIQ Whitehead. DARIQ Whitehead, standing at 6'7", 195 pounds. He can shoot the three, he can attack, he's very athletic, and he can defend. He's a solid 3-and-D type of scorer, and I see him with the ability to be that Iman Shumpert type of player, and that's just the floor. I think with the floor of Iman Shumpert, who was a very great player in the NBA and an NBA champion, that can tremendously help LeBron, and LeBron would love to have a Duke Blue Devil player, because he knows he's going to be coachable, he's going to want to do the right things, and he's going to have that desire to get better. So when you have those blue blood schools and those prospects who can come to a great team and be mentored by LeBron, as long as you want to be coached, I feel like anything is possible. And DARIQ Whitehead, maybe a rookie, might not help the Lakers, but hopefully.
Okay. I think I agree. I think he could be a really good player, but the biggest kind of red flag on him is recently he had another foot injury, and we all know the Lakers have enough injuries as it is.
They got enough foot injuries.
So, yeah, definitely enough foot injuries. So I think if they was able to check his health, then obviously you never really know the foot, because a lot of times guys that have foot injury that lingers their whole pretty much career. But if the injury part wasn't there, it was just the only reason why I think he really would fall. He has great potential and could be a really good player right away. But again, talking about injuries, and speaking of three-point shooting, he shot 42.4% from three. Wow,
I'm telling
that's
you,
legit right there.
I'm telling you, he's a great three-point shooter, and that's what LeBron needs. LeBron is obviously getting up there in age, so the ability to put the ball on the ground, and injuries, he just came off a foot injury. He can't really get to the cup like that, but he can attract a lot of defensive attention. So with him driving, of course teams are going to help. He has to kick it to shooters. 42% from three at Duke, which is a very hostile place to play, whether you home or away. And then you're the most hated team in the country, so wherever you go, you're going to get a lot of hate. You're shooting 42%. I hope his foot is great, because he'll be a great Laker, and I hope that's where he goes. But with that being said, the sixth pick in the draft was Anthony Black. Anthony Black, a shooting guard, 6'7", 185 pounds out of Arkansas, has been selected by the Orlando Magic, who I really don't understand what they are doing. But they have depth almost at every position. I mean, at point guard, you got Markelle Fultz, you got Jalen Suggs, you got Cole Anthony, you got Gary Harris at the 2, Franz Wagner can play the 2. You got a lot of young pieces, but are they ever going to flip the switch, or are they still, is it too early to tell?
No, the Orlando Magics are a franchise that I would compare to, not recently, but the Cleveland Browns. A franchise mirrored in obscurity. They had that little run with the, obviously maybe Penny Hardaway back in the day had that little run with Dwight Howard, but it's just a team that they had Aaron Murray, whatever, Aaron Gordon.
Aaron Murray, is that the Georgia quarterback?
They had Aaron Gordon, which is just bringing the flash or whatever like that, but it's just always, I don't even know who their head coach is, to be honest. I'm sorry, maybe I should know that, I'm sorry. But it's just a franchise that I feel that just stays in mediocrity, never is trying to be great, always usually at the top of the draft board. So it's always not, I'm not sure what they're really doing, to be honest. But Anthony Black does have an extremely high IQ, basketball IQ, and really good athleticism. Everybody wants to use the term now combo guard. That's just a little hot term, but I mean, it's just where do you play them? How many minutes? Just different things like that. Because it's what, the 6th pick. So if you picking somebody that high, it should be somebody that either you're going to build around, or that's able to come in right away and make an impact. Now, if Anthony can do that or not, I'm not sure, but only time will tell.
At Arkansas, he shot 30% from 3, 45% from the field, while averaging 5.1 rebounds, 4 assists, and 12.8 points per game. So I'm not really sure what his role would be. Do I see the potential for him to be a solid NBA player or a starter? Yes, but at pick 6, when you still have Jarris Walker on the board, Cam Whitmore on the board, just a lot of other pieces that you can get. It's kind of interesting. And another thing, the Orlando Magic head coach, Jamal Mosley, he's a hands-on coach. It's a couple videos with Paolo Banchero, who is their cornerstone piece. I don't know how I could not mention him. Yeah. He is their cornerstone piece. Averaging 20 points per game as a rookie is very tough to do. So how long do you even think they will have Paolo Banchero? Because I feel like as soon as his player option comes up, he gone.
Current contract, but to me, I think they hold on to him as long as they can, because I mean, outside of him, that's one guy that's a ticket. Like you would go to a game just to see Paolo play, and I don't think they have many of those players in Orlando. So obviously, if you're not I don't know if they're really adamantly trying to win right now. If you're not, at least you got somebody. Because if you're not trying to win and you're not selling tickets, that's a lose-lose. So that's at least somebody, obviously, I think can be a superstar in this league that you can build off of. And you having a 6th pick, hopefully this guy helps, but that should have been a place where you could get somebody that can really come and play alongside him, and you could really be able to build and become a contender a little quicker than most people may have thought.
And just like that, with the 7th pick in the NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers have selected the teammate of Victor Wembanyama, Bilal Coulibaly.
Did you say that right? I don't want no backlash.
Hey, I hope I said it right.
You gotta get hooked on finals.
I hope I said it right. The stats are not eye-popping, and I also saw something today where people were saying he has the baby stage comparisons of a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Me personally, if you are compared to Giannis Antetokounmpo, they are telling you have no bag and all you can do is dribble and flick your wrist over the rim. But that's just me personally. Giannis is still a great player. I just don't rock with him. With that being said, Coulibaly averaged 5 points per game for the team Victor Wembanyama played on. I think the Metropolitan 92 or something like that. I don't want to get it wrong, excuse me. But he shot 59% from the free throw line.
Huh? Did you say Shaq?
I said Bilal Coulibaly. Yeah, so this is definitely a potential pick. The Pacers are rolling the dice. Like you said, it's a crapshoot, so they're taking a shot in the dark, hoping that this player can turn out to be what they want him to be. But, yeah, I don't know about this pick. I mean, like I said, I don't want to keep saying this guy's name, but you got Jarris Walker on the board. You got Kris Murray on the board. I mean, you got a lot of pieces, but you go with the potential prospect. So the Washington Wizards, they have selected the guy I mentioned the past 2 to 3 picks in Jarris Walker. Jarris Walker is a forward out of Houston. He was the only D1 freshman with 35-plus three-point field goals, blocks, and steals last year. So he's very versatile and can get it done on both ends of the court. With that being said, he had 11.2 points per game, 6.8 rebounds per game, and 1.8 assists, while shooting 46.6% from the field goal range, which is not bad at all. He's 6'8", 240. So he's a 3-and-D wing for sure. 35% from field goal range, which isn't too bad. The only problem with Walker is he's a 66% free throw shooter. What's up with the free throws? They free.
And you know the big guys always struggle with it. Another thing that a lot of guys have really been intrigued of, which is crazy. This man is 19 years old. He was 6'7", 249 pounds. I mean, that's a big dude right there.
You scared me for a second. You scared me for a second. But one thing I will say is, I hope these guys pan out because a lot of the attention has been going to the top three. And honestly, if you don't keep up with basketball, you don't have a clue in the world who these people are. So hopefully, especially with the Summer League coming up, they can all make a name for themselves. But I know my guy, Hami Hawkway, is going to make a name for himself. I don't know about you.
And don't forget Bryce Sensabaugh. You'll see his name sometime later tonight. Y'all will probably be asleep, but just watching a little film on YouTube or something. OH, out.
But through 8 picks, you know what has not happened yet?
What's that?
A trade. A trade. Usually we see a trade or we see like picks being gone. No superstar has been traded, no starter has been traded. The Jazz are on the clock right now. And another thing, a lot of the picks have been in as soon as another team has been on the clock. So right now the Jazz are taking their time. The Jazz went in full rebuild mode last year when they traded Rudy Gobert for a boatload of first-round picks from the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they also traded their star shooting guard and Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who they claim that the lights were too bright in the playoffs. How you feel about that?
Well, I'm starting to think that maybe he sold that game on purpose. He showed up to, I think, an Indians game, or just a game in general with a New York Mets jersey on. And apparently his dad works for the franchise or something. And he's all in New York talking about how great it was, the crowd, this, that, and the other, which I'm pretty pissed off about. Because he just no-showed. So I'm not going to say anything about being rigged, but it's starting to seem like he just loved talking about New York this whole offseason. New York did not trade for you. They had the chance, but no. Who did they choose? I forgot who they chose. Jalen Brunson over you. The same guy who just showed out the whole time. You had no sense of pride. You are an embarrassment to the city of Cleveland.
Oh my God! He did not mean that. This is just a passionate Cavaliers fan who is upset about losing to the New York Knickerbockers, but he loves Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and Isaac Okoro. He's just very passionate.
I have a quick question for you about Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
I heard he's the next Kevin Durant, but I don't see all these other people. They say he's the next like big thing, but when I turn on the game, especially the playoffs, I don't know. I just don't understand.
Your starting center said the lights were too bright. But for Evan Mobley to answer that question, do I see Kevin Durant? Absolutely not.
Okay.
But I do see Chris Bosh. Is that bad? I don't think he's a top 3, top 4 pick. You get compared to a Chris Bosh, 2-time NBA champion. I really don't think that's too bad at all. And back to the Donovan Mitchell thing, as you were talking, a thought kind of happened in my head. Usually you have to deal with another team, another player from another team, or an executive from another team, or a coach from another team, kind of trying to finesse the system in a way on social media or through a message or like through a indirect message to get a player to join. Kind of like when the Lakers wanted Paul George and Magic Johnson was trying to get Paul George to come and Magic Johnson trying to get Kawhi to come, but they got in trouble for tampering. Do you think Donovan Mitchell is self-tampering?
No doubt. I don't get it. I don't understand it at all. I don't know what he's doing. So I wish we'd trade him. Maybe I thought maybe could get Kristaps Porzingis or something like that. Obviously, I don't know why we want to trade Jared Allen. We couldn't even get a rebound. Like what?
But he picked that afro out.
He can't rebound. He wanted to be a point guard. Want to pass all the dang time. Like you could not rebound though. Who was the guy from the Knicks that was just out?
Mitchell Robinson?
Mitchell Robinson. This 6'11", but out. No, I think he's maybe 6'9".
He's up there in height, but he's tenacious though.
Yeah, box out. That's what's wrong with the game today. Nobody wants to box out. Nobody want to play defense. Nobody want to play help side. They want to play all this one-on-one. It's no defensive principles. And then when they get to playoff time, now you want to act like you want to play defense. And to that coach of the Cavs, I forget your name.
JB Bickerstaff. I got you.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't know what the heck you're doing. So you need to get it together, or I'm like, who's better, you or David Black?
Oh my goodness. That's a low blow for Bickerstaff. David Black? You don't want to be comparing David Black. I mean, his name David Black.
I know, but just going back to when LeBron came back, everybody was telling me he was the best coach in the whole Western Hemisphere. He couldn't even last us.
Oh man.
Oh goodness.
That is crazy.
But a point on that, David Black, watch who you hire, guys, because his assistant coach was his replacement.
And the year he was fired, correct me if I'm wrong, the year he was fired is when Tyronn Lue stepped up.
Yep.
Didn't get stepped over. He stepped up and won a championship.
Yep.
The 9th pick is in, and right now we await. Of course, they're showing a commercial about Wembeyamba.
I mean, a guy, I hope the best for him, but he says he's very centered, which I hope he is, because to get that much hype, if you don't have the right people around you, you can fall into the deep end. Going to the Spurs, which who would you even say well, obviously now he's the best Spurs player, but who would you say was the best Spurs player?
Keldon Johnson, definitely.
Okay. Is this a team that you think could make it to the play-in round?
Coached by Greg Popovich, with a prospect who can come in averaging 20 points per game, I do believe you can squeeze in a 10th seed. I do believe that. Although the West is ultra competitive and you got teams like the Thunder on the come up who probably gonna make the playoffs, the Pelicans with a healthy Zion, maybe the Trailblazers, not sure what's going on in Portland, but they can compete for a 10th spot, I believe. And with the 9th pick, your guy has been drafted to the Utah Jazz, Taylor Hendricks.
Well, would you say that's a surprise, or was that where you think he would have ended up?
I'm really not. I do think it's a surprise, honestly. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes down to you never need too many big men centers in the game. The game is getting smaller. I do believe you need you a pivotal 5 that can't stretch the floor like a Robert Williams or like a Steven Adams. You need one of those, but having a lot of those, I don't know. You got Larry Markkinen, and yes, Markkinen plays the 3, but if you want to compete, I would put Markkinen at the 4. So I guess they're going to have Markkinen, Hendricks, then Walker Kessler, who was a great shot blocker and was a great rookie this year. But me personally, I would have went smaller and drafted a 3 so I can move Markkinen to the 4 and allow Walker Kessler and Markkinen to be kind of like twin towers who can stretch the floor while getting a 3 who can kind of do everything 3 and D, to go with Colin Sexton, to go with Jordan Clarkson, and to just provide you with a spark. Maybe your guy in Jordan Hawkins would have been a great pick in the, right here, or anybody, Grady Dick right here. What's his name from Nick Smith, who really gets a lot of Jordan Poole comparisons with his athleticism and his ability to make crazy shots. Although Nick Smith is more of a guard, I think that would have worked. And one more player I think would have definitely worked was Cam Whitmore from Villanova. So do I like the pick? Not really. I'm not really sold on Taylor Hendricks. He's very thin, and I don't really know if he's much of a 3-point shooter. So I don't know. I see a Wenyen Gabriel type of player, to be honest.
Now, just on his 3-point percentage, he shoots 39.4%.
Okay, I stand corrected.
So he's a pretty solid 3-point shooter. Most people see him as a stretch 4. And a pretty capable defender as far as like switching and pick and roll and everything like that. His weak spots are his ball handling, shot creation. I mean, stuff that you would kind of expect from a stretch 4. But I think it's kind of interesting because you kind of have 2 different thought processes right now in the league. You got most teams are trying to go small, you know, have a stretch 5 or whatever like that. And then you have some teams trying to go ultra big, which one of them didn't work, obviously, with the Cavs, with Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. At one point, he had Lauri Markkinen, had the biggest team in the league. Then we traded Lauri. knows why. But we traded Lori to get Donovan Mitchell. Wow, that worked out great. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe it will, but I expect not a first round exit next year. Donovan Mitchell in the top 3 seed. If that's not too much, you're supposed to be a superstar. I'm sorry.
I don't think he's supposed to be a superstar. I think he's just a star, but that's a different topic.
He's had some great games, 50-point games, 40-point games. And to me, defense in the league comes down to effort and wanting to. Half the people don't want to, and then you try to turn the switch on, and it's just not going to happen overnight. But a lot of that starts from the head coach on down. Yeah, that's kind of my opinion on that. I think we'll see how talented Hendricks is, but I think he could be like an all-star, mid-level kind of guy. Not a starting all-star, but I could see him being one of the reserves or something like that.
So you think he has what it takes to make it onto what is it about 24 to 30 people on that? That's an all-star year, 15 to 15, I think. Mm-hmm. So you think he could be one of the?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, especially I think after a lot of these guys leave, like the LeBrons, the Currys, the Thompson, stuff like that. They're on the line in their career. I'm like, who's next to really step up and take that role of superstar to carry the stick? And the guys that I think about guys who people hate on, people hate LeBron, people love LeBron, but he's somebody that regardless of how you feel about him, you go to watch him, either to watch him succeed or to watch him fail. Now, after those guys are gone that a lot of people take for granted, it's like, who's next?
And with that being said, I really don't think there is a next for filling the LeBron James shoes.
VIKTOR WEMBEYAMBA.
So, the 10th pick is in. We don't know yet. We're waiting on Adam Silver to come up to the stand. But I just had to get off topic because there's no way this man just said VIKTOR WEMBEYAMBA is the next LeBron James. I cannot believe that NBA reporters were really asking the question, who is a bigger prospect coming out of high school? I was born 2003, but I do not care. LeBron James is the best prospect to ever come out of high school. Anyway, Adam Silver is on the stand. This pick will be going, first trade, this pick will be going to the Oklahoma City Thunder. What's crazy is we were going to round out the draft to the top 10, and we finally got a trade. Another trade is Bilal Coulibaly going to the Wizards, going to the Washington Wizards. So he was selected 6. Mm-hmm. He's getting traded to the team who had the 7th pick and drafted Jarris Walker. So Jarris Walker, they're just flip-flopping. Okay. Jarris Walker is going to the Indiana Pacers, I'm sorry. Yeah. And Bilal Coulibaly will be going to the Washington Wizards. So kind of like what I said with the Indiana Pacers needing a wing, they got that wing. And now the Wizards, who Lord knows what they're doing, they take another shot in the dark and get a prospect. Like, it must be a prospect in 2025 that we don't know about. With that being said, the Dallas Mavericks have picked Cason Wallace, point guard out of Kentucky. He is the 3rd University of Kentucky freshman to score 20 points on 80% field goal shooting in the NCAA tournament, so he can score the rock at a very efficient level. However, Dallas will not be keeping his pick, and Cason Wallace will be getting traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder when he'll be reunited. Well, I'm not sure if he ever played with this player, but he'll be reunited with the University of Kentucky player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So they should have a relationship through Coach Calipari, which may help Cason Wallace become a solid 6-man point guard, because he's obviously not going to live up to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But if you can get you a 6-man to come off the bench to go with Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, Lou Dort, that is a solid lineup. And let me tell you one thing, if you ever play with them in 2K, you will not lose. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets active. How do you feel about this pick before we round out today?
I think it's a solid pick. And I don't say this lightly, but when you think Cason Wallace, think elite perimeter defender. Elite. He's a really good playmaking guard. Obviously, I think he's a guy that can kind of will be able to run the show for them. But I think he's a playmaking guard, really good finisher. He needs to work on his 3-point shooting. Shot 34%, which is, I would say, average to a little bit below average. Obviously, my other host, Jaden, touched on his performance in the NCAA tournament, but throughout the year he averaged 11.7 points per game. So I think you're not going to really look at him as far as the biggest thing I feel like he needs to improve on is his shooting, perimeter and outside. But he's a really good finisher, a really good defender, and I think a really good playmaking guard that should be able to help in some way, even if it's to come off the bench and just to continue to grow throughout his career. It would be interesting to look at how he progresses.
With you stating all those intangibles that he had, I don't really see a too far off comparison to a great NBA player who always flies under the radar in Jrue Holiday. A person whose three-point shot has never been up to par but can finish because he's very strong, very built, very tough, can finish, can be a very disruptive defender, and has that playmaking ability. So if you can get Case and Wallace, who might be a steal for the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're set for years. Sam Presti has them set for years when it comes down to draft picks, and he has done a great job in selecting players, especially with Jalen Williams from Santa Clara. Like, how hard is it to find a player from Santa Clara, and he ends up being somebody. Then you got the other Jalen Williams from Arkansas, who led the league in charges taken, I want to say, or he was up there. So it's just, he knows how to draft the pieces for his team. So getting Case and Wallace, I think that's going to be a great pick. And if you can get a baby Jrue Holiday to come off the bench, eventually Case and Wallace might want a payday if he turns out to be Jrue Holiday. But if you can get him while he's young, OKC is coming. Watch out. They might make a splash like the Sacramento Kings did.
That's a big one there. I really do love the way Sacramento plays. But another thing is he went to Kentucky, played under John Calipari. So usually he does a good job of getting guys NBA ready. So I think that's another standpoint, something that can help him as he begins to transition and adjust to the collegiate level.
With that being said, I do appreciate you all for tuning in to our NBA Draft special episode. We loved every minute of it. Love talking sports, going back and forth with my favorite host, Randall Moss. And once again, we wildin', we clowning. No later.
You get to watch, it's perfect timing. I can see clear, clarity diamonds, ice on the crew. Everybody shining, can't nobody stop me from grinding.